Good day everyone. Welcome to Child and Adolescent Learners and Learning Principles by yours truly, Shala Salubud. Our discussion for today is all about the principle of language development. Language is a critical factor in children's adjustment. Deficits in language development have been linked to social problems, conduct problems, and delinquency. This chapter gives us a background of how language is learned and the psychological theories concerning language development. It provides us with what we need to know when it comes to how language develops and the way children eventually understands what is being said and what is they just read. According to Aristotle, for the things we have to learn before we can do them, we learn by doing them. When we become aware of our surroundings, we ask a lot of questions. Through this, we improve our understanding of content knowledge, our thinking process, and our engagement in tasks, which we learn by doing them. Language development of children and adolescents. In the span of just a few years, newborn infants who neither speak nor understand any language become young children who comment, question, and express their ideas in the language of their community. As a young children, they are very observant and thus made them curious the things that they observe. For instance, they ask, "Unsa natin si ngalan ana?" and so on. As the parent of any preschooler knows, young children ask a lot of questions. According to my research, mothers typically are asked an average of 228 questions a day by their children aged 2 to 10. They ask those questions out of curiosity. Curiosity encourages children to engage self-directed learning and in higher level thinking skills. What is language? Language is defined as a communication system in which a limited number of signals that can be sounds or letters for gestures. In the case of the sign language used by deaf people, can be combined according to agreed upon rules to produce an infinite number of messages. It is clear that language is a communication system. We express ourselves through actions, words, or sounds and gestures to send an infinite number of messages. Next, the 5 basic components of language. First, the phonemes. Phonemes are the basic units of sounds in any given language. These are the sounds we create with the letters of the alphabet. When we teach reading, we teach children which letters represent those sounds. For instance, the word hat has 3 phonemes. The H, which sound H. The A sounds A. And T sound T. T. Okay, second, morpheme is the smallest grammatical unit of speech, like prefixes, suffixes, and base words. Morphemes are comprised of 2 separate classes called free base morpheme, found at the end of the word, and bound base morpheme, found at the beginning of the word, like the place or an on or an element of a word like re and ed, as in reappeared. The re in the word reappeared is the bound base morpheme. That's because it's found at the beginning of the word, and the ed in the reappeared is the free base morpheme, that's because found at the end of the word. Okay, number 3, syntax is the structure of language, the grammar. It is the arrangement of words into a sentence that makes sense in a given language. The study of the formation of sentences and the relationship of their component parts. The most basic syntax follows a subject plus verb plus direct formula. For example, Jillian hit the ball. Syntax allows us to understand that we wouldn't write or read hit Jillian the ball. That's because it's wrong grammar. Second, I mean the fourth, semantics or meaning of language. Infants come to understand many words before they can produce them. That is, comprehension or the reception is ahead of production or the expression in language development. 10-month-old can comprehend on average about 50 words. It means that the meaning and the interpretation of words, signs, and sentence structure, how we understand others, and even that decisions we make as a result of our interpretations. A child make use of for example, a child might make use of semantics to understand a mom's directive to the phrase "do your chores," which is equivalent to "do your chores whenever you feel like it." However, the mother was probably saying, "Do your chores right now." Okay? The fifth, pragmatics refers to the use or application of language. It is typically viewed as a social aspect of language. A person or a child who is pragmatic is concerned more with matters of fact than with what could or should be. A pragmatic person's realm is result and consequences. The related adjective from pragmatic means practical, especially when making decisions. Okay, the theories of language development. First is the nativist perspective, Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky's theory on language development explained that the nativist perspective believes that nature is most crucial in the process of language development. Infants have an inborn mechanism for acquiring syntax knowledge in any culture and society, also known as universal grammar. A universal grammar is defined as the system of categories, mechanisms, and constraints shared by all human languages and considered to be innate. In addition, the language acquisition device is an inborn mechanism that allows infants to learn and manipulate deep grammatical structures. Through hypothesis testing, children use natural mechanisms to teach themselves various aspects of language use. This theory concept that is proposed by Noam Chomsky that the human brain contains an innate mental grammar that helps humans acquire language. Second, the cognitive development theory perspective by Jean Piaget. In contrast to nativist theory, the cognitive development theory does not state a specific inborn mechanism as part of the developmental process. Rather, language development occurs according to stages of cognitive development. For example, object permanence is an important stage of cognitive development that must occur before language appears. Object permanence involves understanding that items and people still exist even when you can see or hear them. According to Piaget, language appears when one has the ability to represent symbols in the mind. This leads to the creation of words, which leads to the language acquisition. That's because signals is an important development in an infant's working memory, as it means they can now form and retain a mental representation of an object. Third, the behaviorist perspective by B.F. Skinner. Skinner's behaviorist theory, language is taught through various reinforcement in the environment. The behaviorist perspective believes that nurture is most crucial in the process of language development. Infants learn to associate certain stimuli with certain behaviors and responses with continued for example, through operant conditioning, infants learn what sounds elicit certain responses. Operant conditioning, it is a method of learning that uses rewards and punishments to modify behavior. Through operant conditioning, rewarded behaviors are likely to be repeated while punished behaviors rarely occur. With continued reinforcements, infants learn appropriate responses and behaviors which lead towards language development. That's because we need our genes and brain to build a language acquisition device, or the LAD. The LAD is a hypothetical tool in the human brain that lets children learn and understand language quickly. And then, after we have the ability to learn a language, our acquired environment acts on our language system. Then, the interactionist perspective by Lev Vygotsky. Number 4, the interactionist perspective differs from the behaviorist perspective in that this believes that language is acquired through social interaction in the environment, not reinforcement. Meaning, the interactionists also believe that nurture is crucial in the process of language development, though the interactionist believes that language is acquired through social interaction in the environment, not reinforcement. Children naturally acquire a language in social contexts where they interact with their caregivers or the guardians. The more words caregivers or guardians use, the larger a child's vocabulary will be. A rich social environment helps build language skills. Okay, next is the stages in speech development. First, primitive or natural stage, birth to about 2 years. This is a period where the child will learn, imitate words, tries to name objects, will begin to speak, and emotionally react by crying or socially respond by laughing. This is characterized by 3 non-intellectual speech functions. A. Emotional release. When a child is hungry, he or she cry or shout loudly so that their parents will give them food. In adolescent, it can also apply to other people in a process whereby have to people may experience a sudden rush of powerful emotion while receiving body work, whether it is a grief, anger, fear, or sadness. B. Social reactions. In social reactions, which is applied to a child, when a child saw that, for example, when a child saw that in her or his environment is the adult saying bad words, and he saw that their reactions are okay with saying bad words, which is really not, then it probably the child might imitate their actions of the adults around the child. That is the social reactions. But in applied to adolescents, social reaction, let's say adolescent is labeled a criminal due to stereotypes about the child's or the adolescent ethnicity. As stereotypes, it means to believe unfairly that all people or things with a particular characteristic are the same, although he or she has done nothing wrong. Social reaction establishes that the child is more likely to in criminal behavior and activity later in life because of this label. It's not fair to stereotype a whole group of people based on one person you don't like. Okay, letter C, substitutes for objects and desires. Play advances the development of mental representations, which occurs when children separate the meaning of objects from their physical form, learning to operate not with real objects but with their symbolic substitutes contributes to the development of abstract thinking and imagination. Okay, these are the words learned by conditioning, by parents and siblings matching the words frequently to objects. Second, naive psychology. Children discover that words can have a symbolic function, and they display this discovery by frequently asking what things are called. The child's experience with his or her own body and objects and the use of tools increasingly correct use of language structures without the understanding of their logical meaning. In short, a child speaks words without grasping their purpose and meaning. For example, when an infant utters doggy, he or she could mean, "Where is my doggy?" or "I want the doggy now." Over time, the child uses slightly more complex phrases such as "doggy now." These phrases lack an understanding of grammar or structure. The infant determines meaning from the responses others give to his phrases. Okay. Third, the egocentric speech takes the form of a running monologue that accompanies the child's activities, whether the child works alone or beside others. The use of external signs as aids in the solution of internal problems, counting on the fingers, egocentric speech becomes more and more curtailed and esoteric, or likely to be understood by only a small number of people. Children didn't know how to internalize their thoughts. They learned how to handle them through egocentric speech, according to Vygotsky. Number 4, ingrowth stage. Children learns to manipulate language in their heads in the form of soundless speech, thinking by means of logical memory that employs inner science for solving problems. For example, a child will count in his head as opposed to using his fingers to numerate, and need to communicate with others people around him improves his ability to internalize thought and actions. In short, this is the stage where the child will speak less and internalize more using private speeches. Next, the age of child and its typical language development. At 6 months, when the child is 6 months old, vocalization with intonation, respond to his name, and respond to human voices without visual cues by turning his head and eyes. For instance, the child uses his or her voice to express pleasure and displeasure, like they cry if they are really hungry. And they also notice that some toys make sounds. That's why usually the parents give their child toys that can make sounds. Okay, 12 months. When the child is 12 months old, uses one or more words with meaning, if this may be a fragment of a word. Understands simple instructions, especially if vocal or physical cues are given. In this stage, the child tries to imitate speech sounds, say a few words such as papa and mama. They also understand simple instructions such as come here. Okay. 18 months. When the child is 18 months old, has vocabulary of approximately 5 to 20 words, vocabulary made up chiefly of nouns, some echolalia, or the repeating a word or phrase over and over, such as recognizing names of familiar people, objects, and body parts, and following simple directions accompanied by gestures. 24 months. When the child is 24 months old, which is equivalent to 2 years old, they use simple phrases, vocabulary of approximately 150 and 300 words, can use two pronouns correctly, I, me, you, although me and I are often confused. Responds to such commands as show me your eyes, your nose, your mouth, or hair. They use simple phrases such as more milk as 1 to 2 word questions, and follow simple commands and understand simple questions. 36 months. When the child is 36 months old, which is equivalent to 3 years old, it has in the neighborhood of 900 to 1,000 words, able to reason out such questions as what must you do when you are sleepy, hungry, cool, or thirsty. Should be able to give his sex, name, and age. In other words, the child is now able to have 2 to 3 exchanges with a listener, and he is keen to talk about immediate experiences as well as things that have learned before. And then next is 48 months. When a child is 48 months old, which is equivalent to 4 years old, knows names of familiar animals like cat, dogs, horse, cow, frog, and etc. Knows one or more colors like red, blue, green, black, and other colors. Then repeat 4 digits when they are given slowly, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so on. It means that a typical 4 years old also can put together sentences of 4 or 5 words. Okay, the 6-month-old, a 5 years old child, has number concepts of 4 or more, can count to 10, speech should be completely intelligible in spite of articulation problems, should have all vowels and the consonants. Childs often know all the letters of the alphabet and their correct order, especially if the child is exposed to letters. For example, the parents slowly teach their child by gaming, by letting them play in the parents' cell phone, which games that focus on letters, numbers, colors, and so on. Okay, the 6 years old child in this speech should be completely intelligible and socially useful, should be able to tell one or rather connected story about pictures, seeing relationships between objects and happening. In this stage, the child asks about their surroundings, such as why is the sky blue? They know the relationship between objects, such as the relationship between the key and the lock. Next, 7 years old. A children this stage should be able to tell time to quarter hour, should be able to do simple reading and write or print many words, and they are more focused on creativity. They tend to ask a pencil and a paper or a crayon to draw or write. 8 years old. All speech sounds, including consonant blends, should be established. Control of rate, pitch, and volume are generally well and appropriately established. Can carry on conversation at rather adult level. Meaning, children start to learn sound, specifically the pronunciation of the word. They can communicate with others and to adults. Okay, that's all for my discussion. Thank you, and I hope you all understand. Have a nice day. Goodbye.